Hey, it's been a hot minute, but welcome to Mark Talks Rocks. Um, it's the podcast where we talk about Lake Superior agates. Most of the time, Eastern Upper Peninsula Lake Superior agates. And my name's Mark Bowen, and I got some agates here. We get to show today, and I get to talk about. But we had some questions in the previous episodes that I wanted to answer. So I could get down to that. Jim Nar, I think that's how his name is pronounced, Jim Nar. He asked, how did I hike all the way from the Two-Hearted to Little Lake Harbor? He's like, isn't there a big river there? I think there's a creek and a river. So when you get to the Two-Hearted campground, there's a campground section off to the right that you could go down, and that takes you to the east side of the Two-Hearted River. And from there you can just start walking all the way to Little Lake Harbor. But there is another like creek that comes out way down by Little Lake Harbor, probably about a half mile from Little Lake Harbor, and I think that creek is called the Little Two-Hearted River or the Little Two-Hearted Creek. But usually that's not very big. Like, I wear water shoes, or sometimes if it's cold in the spring or the fall, I'm wearing like muck boots or something, and I'll just walk across that creek, man. And I just keep hiking all the way down towards that area. But I have got some beef for doing that, actually. I think there's some cabins down there by Little Lake Harbor, and I've been approached by some of those homeowners down there in the past for walking on that beach. And the guy who's drove his four-wheeler down there onto the beach, he's told me, this is private property, get off my beach. Can't you see we live here? Why can't you go pick down there? There's miles of beach down there. Why don't you go over there? Why you gotta be coming on my beach, man? And as a rock picker, those are the things that we can encounter. I get that he's probably worked hard his whole life to be able to afford to have that second home up there on the beach, way in the middle of nowhere. And I can picture him having his morning coffee or whatever. He comes up north, probably coming up north, stay at his cabin, and gets to have his morning coffee and takes his sip, and Lake Superior, I'm all alone, nobody's around. What is that? It's those rock pickers again on my beach. They want to come up there and they want to have solitude. They worked hard all their life to be able to have that. But the law states, I'm pretty sure that nobody can own the beach up to the high water mark. The beach on the Great Lakes is free for anybody to walk on, and but he has every right to come down and tell us he doesn't want us around there. But I do believe the law is on the rock pickers' side. It's a point of contention. So if you're ever down by Little Lake Harbor down there picking rocks, just know that may happen, and try to be polite. Try to say we're just passing through. We're not going to go up past the high water mark or anything like that. But I did walk all the way from the Two-Hearted to Little Lake Harbor. and I've done that before. It is kind of a far walk, a couple miles, anyways, each way. But there's always really good agates down there, so I want to just see what's down there. And anyways, there's another question. Uh, I think her name is Amy Hamlin, and she was asking about that rock that I showed in the last episode. I think it was the first one with the little, what I believe to be fluorite rings in it. And she said, could that be a geode? And that's a good question. It could be. I don't know what's on the inside of that rock. I never cut it in half. That's a good question. Maybe it could be. I've never. Oh yeah, I have. I have cut rocks and found them to be fully agate inside or fully geode inside from these beaches on the EUP, but it's not very often that that happens, you know. Usually because of being water washed and tumbled around the lake, when an agate from the EUP that you find on the beach is found by you, there will usually be some banding on it exposed due to the weathering and the water washed and the eroding away the husk and stuff. You'll usually be able to see at least some part agate, and that happens a lot too. Like I used to think like in the beginning that when I started hunting, like there would be rocks with basalt all over them, but little chunks of agate, seam agate in between, you know? With that green basalt, you'd get like seam agate in between. And I'd be like, man, I wonder if you cut this open, there could be a bunch of agate inside. But usually, since I bought rocks on, I've done this to hundreds of rocks. Usually, what's on the outside of the rocks you're going to find in the UP, the patterning you're going to get on the outside is usually the same. It's homogeneous. It'll be the same on the inside. Like if you're getting little seams of agate on the outside of a rock, you cut it in half and it'll be the same inside. I've rarely found a rock where there would be only a little window of agate and then I cut it and then it would be fully agate inside. But I have, but it's a very rare. It's I'm trying to see over here if I had an example of that, and I probably do have an example of that somewhere around here, but we'll get into that later. Uh, Another question. The last question was by Jim Nar, and he said he was asking about a rock that I had featured in a previous podcast, and he said, I assume you found that way over far east rather than the west because it's really white colored, the agate. And I did find the rock at Vermilion. Let's take a look at that actually. I do believe this is the rock he was talking about. And he said there was hardly any red, it was all white. So did you find that really far east? And I did find it at Vermilion, which is about 7 miles west of Whitefish Point. So it is in the eastern portion of the EUP. And there is some red in there, though. Like you could see in this area right here. And maybe some browns or oranges, depending on the light. These agates change in different lighting. The colors, what can appear to be brown at one time, if you get it in the sunlight or under a different type of light, it could be more red or more orange. And, you know, it just depends. These right here, this rock is, you could call this more of a brown, but I did look at this section and like sunlight, it appears to be more peachy colored. So these colors that are in these agates are very subjective and open to interpretation. And as far as it being more white rather than red as an indicator of how far east, I don't think so. as far as the EUP, and or way over in Minnesota, they still have some really nice white colored agates over there too. But the rocks in general over on the eastern Upper Peninsula beaches, and I've heard this from a lot of friends from like Keweenaw or Minnesota that have come over and hunted over here. They always notice that the rocks in general, when you're on the beach, are way whiter. They're all seem to be white, like granite colored and stuff. The amount of white rock is a lot more in the UP than if you go into the Keweenaw or if you go into Minnesota and you check out their beaches. The rock is more red, predominantly red and dark and iron stained, like a lot more iron color over in Minnesota on their beaches, and over in the Keweenaw. It's, like when I first went to the Keweenaw, I looked at their beaches and I was like, "Whoa! Look at how brown and red all the rocks are, man!" And over in the EUP, it's like if you look at the general color, like as you look down the beach, everything is a lot more white, like ivory colored. But then as you look closer, you see all the different colors, but predominantly a lot of granite over here. I think that's what it is granite based rocks are in a higher occurrence over in the EUP because they've been pushed by the glaciers down from Canada right above us. But that question by Jim Narr, that brings me to what I'd like to talk about, and it's for this podcast. It's species of agates, subspecies of agates of the EUP, because I've hunted a long time here and I've found a lot of agates, and I started noticing there's types of EUP Lakers, even within that broader category of Lake Superior agate. Then you get a more precising definition of Eastern Upper Peninsula Lake Superior agate, and then even within that I've found and labeled my own little labels of a more precising definition of different types of Eastern Upper Peninsula agates, and we're going to take a look at some of those today. And the first example that I'm going to show you guys is ones that I call carnelians. They're very, very bright red, and usually they don't have any high contrast banding in them. Usually they'll have darker banding, like a shadowy black banding or something within them. So if you kind of like look at them from a distance, they just look red. But then you hold them up close and you can see the banding within them. They usually will not have too much matrix attached. They're going to be a subset of maybe what I'd call Christmas agates. We'll get into those later. But these ones usually won't have much matrix attached. They won't have high contrast banding. And they will be very, very red. And that's why I call them carnelians, Yeah. Good carnelian is hard to find. I always sing that song, that Tom Petty song that I was looking for carnelians. Good carnelian is hard to find. But let's take a look at one of these. I found this one. This was the only decent agate I found the day I found this. I found it in the water. See how it's all red? And with that dark, shadowy black banding. Wonder how close I could get it to this camera. And if you get it close enough, even with a loop, this area right here, right there, seems to have micro saginite sprays all out of that radial, in the microscopic banding, which makes that banding. And I found, there's another good section where you could see that radial spray coming from this little section of whatever it is. It's a maybe a mineral inclusion right there. And that's about as close as I could get. But there's a mineral inclusion right there, maybe a tube or something. And the banding is like when you really look close up from a with a loop or something, it's kind of like radial sprays, which is really kind of cool. And this one was came from Vermilion, and I'd hunted all day and never found nothing. And we were on our way back, and I was just kind of like really being annoyed after hours and hours of trying to fight the waves and look through waves. And that's a hard way to hunt, man, looking out in the water when there's waves, because every time you see something good, man, a wave just goes plush. Wave gets in your way and you're like, darn, I thought I seen something, but it's gone. And that's a hard way to hunt, but I do it because, sometimes I think that there's something in the water and it's not in the dry. Or maybe I have 3 buddies hunting in the dry, which was happening that day, so I was taking the water. And that's a carnelian. I found this one right in the same area, but in the dry one day. And this needed no introduction. This was what I call a stupid agate, because, man, this thing was sitting out in the middle of the dry and not very much rock. It was just a mixture of rock and sand, and it was sunny out, and this thing was just glowing like hello. So I always said with agates like that are just sitting right up on top and right out for everyone to see, I call them stupid agates, because if you're picking rocks and you miss this thing, you had to have been stupid to miss this. And it's kind of a cool floater, which is not very common with carnelians to see a floater carnelian, man. But as you can see, there's not really any high contrast banding in there. It's just mainly red. I guess you could say it's a little bit of candy stripe, but the color, man, intense red color. And that's a nice one. Now this next agate. Wait, I gotta flip this. I gotta talk about this. This next agate. Forgive me, BB, for telling this story, but I gotta, because it's kind of, we can look back and laugh. We had been hunting, and I found a really nice agate like 20 minutes into the hunt. And my wife, BB, who was my girlfriend at the time, she was very, very, very mad that I found this nice agate right off the bat. And she was like, "You suck." And she went tromping off, and she was like, "I never find anything. Why do you always find the good ones? Blah, 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 blah." And she was very dejected. And I was like, oh my God, here we go. It's only 20 minutes into this hunt, and she's already sounding like she's going to get frustrated and say, "Let's just go." And I'm like, you know what? If it makes you feel any better, you could just have that agate. Here, have this agate. She's like, "I will." And she took it. And she's up ahead of me hunting. She's up ahead of me hunting, and she's still mad. And I'm kind of following her. And we were up against this big dune, right up where the dune meets the beach, like rocks are falling down. And she's mad, and I see her walk right over this thing, man. She walked right over this, and I'm like, there's only one rock that can glow that red around on these beaches, and that's a big fat carnelian, and this is the biggest carnelian I've ever seen. I was so intimidated by her madness that I really didn't want to even say it, but I had to. It's the biggest carnelian I've ever seen. And I was like, "BB," and she's like, "What?" And I pointed down at it as I'm picking up, and check this out. I said, "How could you just do this? You just walked right over this." And at that point, she cried. I mean, she was so disappointed that she didn't see this and she walked right over it and I found it, that she got even madder. And I felt bad for her, but like, I don't know, man. That's how it goes with agate hunting. Like, there is jealousy that happens with agate hunting, and this was a monster carnelian. It was the biggest one I've ever found, man. And it doesn't look too water washed, hey? You could see all this clackiness. It's clacked up for a EUP agate. And I have since theorized maybe it's because it washed right out of the dune. Because, when you're up against these dunes over in the EUP and rocks fall out of them and they roll down to the beach, who knows how long this rock has been sitting in that dune or if that's what happened. Maybe it didn't get a chance to roll around any lakes as much or something, or oceans, ancient oceans. Who knows? But it is more clacky. It's one of the more clacky agates you'll find from the EUP. And yeah, she wanted me to give this to her too. And I was like, no way, man. Like, come on. Like, you gotta let me have a little happiness here. I found this, and maybe someday I will give it to her, actually. And she will put it away in her collection and never let me see it again. Once in a while, she'll bust out her collection, but hers are very personal to her, and she rarely shows them. Or I don't think she ever posts agates on the internet or anything. She doesn't do that. When she finds an agate, she never sells it, and it goes in her cases, and she looks at it. She looks at her cases, and she rarely even shows anybody else her agates. So that's where this one may end up someday. But that's a nice one. So those are carnelians. And there's another type of agate that we find over here that I'd call Botswana wannabes. There's a type of agate from Botswana that is called Botswana agates, of course. And there's some EUP agates that when you find them, you're like, my gosh, that looks exactly like a Botswana agate. And they're silvery and they're black and white and silvery and gray. And they usually have some pretty high contrast white banding. Here, check these ones out. Here's a Botswana type, a Botswana wannabe. And you can see it's got very dark grayish silvery blue and blues and whites, and sometimes a kind of a, it doesn't look like it, but like a rose quartz peachy center in there, just like Botswanas do, and high contrast white banding. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then one I found on my birthday, man. This agate I found on my birthday. Look at this thing, man. This one I found two-hearted to the left, and my weight fluctuates a lot, and I was pretty heavy when I found this, man. And I was trying to get to this area down there I call the pool, which is about 3 miles west of the two-hearted. And I was going to walk down there and back, but I hadn't even got that far yet. And I'd only got about a mile down the beach, and I turned around, and there's this couple. They're coming up behind me. And I didn't pay much attention to them, but I just kept hunting, kind of slowly hunting. And I turned around a little while later, and I was like, oh my God. They're way closer. They're catching up to me. What are they doing? They can't be agate hunting because they're walking way too fast. And so I kept walking, but I started walking a little faster. I'm like, geez, I don't want to. These guys are gonna catch me, and I'm shy. And pretty soon they caught right up to me, man. And they walked way up in the high, and they walked by me, and they didn't say hi. I looked at them, and they didn't even look at me. They just trucked right on by me. And they got about 100 yards in front of me, maybe 50. And they cut right back down to the water's edge and started agate hunting. I was like, geez, if there was such a thing as agate ethics, that's kind of unethical. Geez, I can't believe they did that. But that's the way it goes. And I was really discouraged that they did that. I'm like, well, obviously, if there's something really cool to find up here, they're going to find it, man. But I just kept hunting on the ridge, this big high shoal ridge, that a big rock that, and I was like discouraged that they're going to see the best agate. And I was about ready to give up because BB was waiting way back there on the beach. She didn't come back very far down. And I was like, I might as well just turn around, man. Those guys are making me discouraged. And I almost did. And then I was like, I'm not turning around. You know what? I'm here. And it's my birthday. At least keep going a little bit. And as soon as I made that decision, I walked about 10 feet, and right on the top of that big ridge in the shoal in the kind of misty rain, this thing was going wah, stupid as can be, man. Just bam, looking right at me. And I was like, oh my gosh. Holy. And I was just like a great white shark when a great white shark goes to take a bite out of something. My eyes rolled back and I was just blind for a second as I just went right down there and grabbed this thing. And I looked at it and I was like, whoa, my gosh. And I looked up at those people ahead of me and I'm like, they walked right over this thing. Oh my God. They didn't see this. And I made a little video. I think there's a video of this somewhere back and farther in time on my YouTube channel here. And yeah, I found this and I'm like, you know what? BB's probably waiting for me and she'd be happy if I just said I'm done. And so I said, that's enough for me, man. This is a great gift from the universe, man. What more could I want? If there's any more cool agates to find up there today, up ahead of me, then have fun. Whoever gets to go ahead of me, this is good enough. I'm heading home. And this was my birthday agate. And it's one of these Botswana looking ones, man. It's a beauty. Okay. So we got all kinds of different agates. There's ones I call in the EUP bleached out painters. Paint agates, and they look all dry and they look bleached out by the sun. And they're white and they're usually like you can't see through them. They're opaque. You can't see through them. Paint agates, they call them. And these ones, I never put mineral oil on them. I found that the paint agates that we call bleached out paint agates from the EUP, every time I've ever put mineral oil on those ones, it ruins them. It's like the mineral oil, it douses out the brightness of them and they become muted and dull, and a lot of times their banding will even disappear and stuff. So when I find these bleached out painters, let's take a look at one. I don't put oil on them. I hardly even try to handle them even with my finger oil. This one was a gift from my friend Kathy long ago when I just met her. She gave this one to me. And this one is one of those ones that, you would probably not want to put oil on. But I think I've had it so long, and people have had it so long, just even the finger oils on it kind of like affected it. So, but this is opaque. You cannot see through the banding. Let me see if we got another one here. This one I call the Egyptian agate because I don't know, it reminds me of Egypt for some reason. It's all the desert. This is the desert. This is Egypt. These are pyramids and camels. That's what I think when I think of this agate. Pyramids. The Egyptian agate. This is a bleached out painter that I would never put oil on. And so those are a couple of examples of paint, bleached out paint agates. And sometimes farther east, especially at this place called Wildcat Road, and maybe sometimes in Whitefish Point, but mostly Wildcat Road, a lot of the agates you find on that beach are kind of brownish. Brown and yellow. Yellows and browns. And they almost seem stained a little bit. And I'm not sure why. But just that stretch of beach. You'll find yellow and brown ones on other beaches in the EUP as well. But the distribution of the brown ones, I think, and the yellowish ones are higher at Wildcat for some reason. Let's take a look at one that my cousin Noah found earlier this year. That's it's wild colored, man. It came from Wildcat and it's wild. Check this one out, man. It's got like a nice, it doesn't look to be it, but it's rose quartz in the middle here in person and under a lot of different lighting. But man, look at this, these different colors fading into each other on this thing. But it's got that yellowness and that brownness that a lot of the Wildcat Road, North Beach, some people call that beach, the North Beach. But it's got that yellowness that many agates that you find around that area have. But it is a very pretty agate, I think. Look at that sparkling rose quartz. Nice agate right here. And when he found it, I had to have it. I had to say, man, no, if you ever want to sell that agate, just tell me what I got up there. And he eventually said, hey, you want that agate? And I said, yep, let me go to the bank. And that's a very nice agate. This one is another one of those brown, odd colored ones. And this one, you see up here where it's all dried out? This one is one in the EUP, from the EUP, that I call a thirsty agate. Thirsty agates are agates that you oil and then they dry out again. See that? It's got all dried out. I swear, I oiled this a bunch of times and it just, every time I oil it, it dries out. So they appear to be thirsty. They never can get enough of that oil. And odd brownish, yellowish colors. They're nice though, especially when you first oil it. It looks really nice. But this one's a little dried out right now. And let me get you another agate here. Very odd coloring. Very odd coloring on this one. This one I found right in the spring. It's got purples. It's not showing up too well. And baby blues in it. And this husk here seems to be, in the right lighting and in person, amethyst quartz, like purplish quartz all around there. And it's got some nice yellowish greens to it. And just a really odd combination of colors, man. But it is a very nice agate. I like it a lot. I actually sold this agate to a friend long ago, and I always missed it. And one day, going through all his UP agates, I seen it again, and I'm like, dude, you gotta let me buy the agate back. And he did, and that was very nice of him. So I was like, once I got this one back, it's never coming out of my collection again, because I like it too much. It's got some really nice colors. All right. Now, final agate of the day. I didn't get to the electric blue. I didn't get to the electric blues. But this video is running kind of long, man. Do you guys care? Well, I guess if you cared, you could just shut off the video right now. Come back to it later. But there's electric blues. We'll keep going. It's getting up to about 40 minutes. Might be my longest video. I didn't mean for it to be my longest video, but here we are, man. Electric blues. Let's check out these types, man. They got a really nice baby blue husk, and they got like grayish inside, and there's grayish inside, and a blue husk, and often they'll have green, red, or pinkish, brownish very inside of the matrix, with green on the outside of the pinkish, reddish brown, and then the blue or gray. But it doesn't appear so much right now, the blue and gray on this camera, but oh well. In certain lights, you'd know what I'm talking about. But there's these kind too, man. And they usually, I call them glassy and classy, because they just glassy. They look like they're made out of glass, and you can see right through the banding and stuff like that. Here's another one, man. I call this one the poison dart frog, because look at that. Look at that husk. That husk is killer, dude. Dark electric blue and light baby blue contrasting it, man, with that green in there, and the matrix in there, and it's just really nice, man. And then look at that down in there, that just hint of red warm tone color in the middle of that agate. It's mysterious on this side, dark and mysterious. And then that husk, man. If you ever looked up poison dart frog, you'll see these blue two-tone blue frogs that have that kind of spots on them. That's what it just reminds me of, man. The poison dart frog, dude. But that's a cool electric blue. Now this last agate I'm going to show you, because I just want to say, like, some of the UP agates get some pretty wild colors on them, man. And this next one, my good friend Dawn, she is a pure collector. She never sells her agates or anything, but I consider her to be my friend, and she contacted me one day and said she was ready to sell an agate, and she said that she'd prefer to sell it to me, because she knows how much I like agates, and that I would treasure it and I wouldn't resell it. And And believe me, when she showed me the agate she wanted to sell me, I was like, no, you don't have to worry about me reselling this, man, because this is a beauty. This is a wild agate, and I feel very, very honored that she chose me to own this agate because I really like it. It's a really rare agate, and I really appreciate she did that for me. And let's check this out. Look at the colors in this thing. Wow. Orange. Coppery orange colors, greens, purples, blues, reds. Look at that husk. Oh my lordy. That husk is amazing. Bleached out paint agate sections. Opaque paint agate sections contrasted with peachy, pink, purpley, just like you name it, man. This thing is cosmic, man. This thing came from Jupiter, man. This thing came from outer space, dude. What is that? Smoky quartz husk up here? Wow. Like this is a really, really unique agate. Like there's not very many instances where you can find color combinations on agates like this. And it's a very good size agate as well. But what a nice agate. Nice and nicely water washed as well. And I bet Dawn did the happy dance when she found this thing, man. And yeah, it's a beauty. So that was my grand finale agate today. Those of you that have stuck around to the end of the show, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my show and tell of all these UP agates. We're in the height of summer. There's a lot of bugs out there biting flies right now, but there's still great agates to be found, and unfortunately I'm too busy to do that. But hopefully this fall I can see you guys out there on those beaches, and if you see me walking in the distance, don't say, "It's another person. I gotta turn around." No, be friendly and come up and say hi. Say, "Hey, Mark," and ask and see what I found that day, and I will definitely be curious to see what you found that day. And until then, this is Mark Talks Rocks, and we'll see you next time.